According to Ken Rosenthal, the A's have a lot of changes they need to make to their front office if they want to be a competitive team when they go to Vegas.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Locked On A's. And today we are going to be talking about how John Fisher's cheapness doesn't just apply to the move from Oakland, but also applies to his inability to keep the A's at the current age when it comes to baseball analytics and player development. Later in the show, we're going to be taking your comments. And before that, we'll break down a little bit of the game that happened today when the A's lost 6-2 to the Kansas City Royals, finishing off a sweep at the hands of one of the worst teams in the American League. But first and foremost, a story that was released a week ago. Ken Rosenthal put out a very eloquent piece about the A's. It's not very long. It's actually pretty short. He did it on The Athletic. It's a pretty good read. It's a quick read. I read it yesterday. It took me about, 5-10 minutes. And in this piece, he basically talks about what are the reasons that the A's have underperformed this year. Look, there's a lot of reasons the A's have underperformed, but Ken Rosenthal tries to give you a succinct look. He talks about the ballpark, about how whether they admit it or not, the A's players do get, it's tough for them to keep their heads up as major league players playing in a minor league ballpark. They do kind of feel cheated in a way when they go to other major league ballparks and they see other players, their peers, playing in major league settings. But then he goes in on John Fisher, and you know me, I love a good going in on John Fisher. And he just kind of talks about how John Fisher doesn't really care about winning. Here's a good quote from the piece. Fisher needs to start acting like an owner who burns to win rather than one who appears more interested, in reaping the financial benefits of relocating to a new city and park. It'll take some work, but here are 3 ways for him to fix the A's. He first talks about how the A's have the challenge of finding a new general manager, obviously, with David Forst having just been released. He brings up a few good candidates that could help out the A's going forward. James Click was an interesting one that he talked about, who's with Toronto. John Daniels with Tampa Bay. All those could be very good options for the A's. They look for a replacement for David Forst. He brings up a very good point that Las Vegas is going to be the smallest TV market in Major League Baseball. As soon as the A's move there, it'll be smaller than Milwaukee, which is currently the smallest market. So any idea that the A's are going from a small market to a bigger market is just absurd. The Bay Area is a much bigger market than Las Vegas. But then he goes into what I think is the most interesting part of the piece. And I actually want to thank some of you guys for commenting on my shows and bringing this to my attention, because I found it. It is very, very interesting. So this is the part of the story that I really, really like. So he talks to some club officials on the, anonymously. And one of them says, quote, "As much as we were known as the ones who advanced it," talking about analytics, "we are in last place right now," one club official said. "We're behind the Rockies. We're behind everyone." For those who don't know the context, the Colorado Rockies were kind of known as the laughingstocks of the baseball analytics world coming out of last year. They have since improved a lot with their new general manager. Then Rosenthal goes on to say, quote, "The exact sizes of baseball operations staffs around the league are not known. Some A's baseball employees, though, say theirs is among the smallest, if not the smallest. Ditto for their analytics department, which includes only about 6 members." He talks about other teams, says that the Tampa Bay Rays, another small market team, have 33 employees in just baseball and research development alone. The A's have only 6 members in their entire analytics department. Then the A's give, a joke of a quote in response, quote, "In some cases, we made a decision to use best-in-class external platforms rather than build those capabilities internally and add headcount simply for the sake of doing so." In other words, you're cheap. And also, if you're getting it from external platforms, that's just flawed in the first place, because you're getting other people's information. You're using other people's algorithms. What makes small market teams like the Rays and the Brewers so great is they have their own proprietary algorithm, their own proprietary system. They do things differently, and that's what makes them great. Anyway, This to me is just more proof of what I've been saying all season long since I took over the show. And that is, if the A's really want to improve, if the A's really want to get better as a team, throw out all the Oakland, Las Vegas stuff. That's a whole different topic. But just as far as a baseball operation, they need new ownership. John Fisher just does not know how to succeed in sports. He doesn't know how to really succeed in business, period. Again, he's a Nepo baby. John Fisher, name one thing John Fisher has built for himself that has actually worked. And I've gotten some great comments about how, there's one guy who loves to challenge me, and I really appreciate it. Forget his name right now off the top of my head, but about how the A's were a very successful franchise in the 2010s. And they were. They made the playoffs a lot. They didn't win the World Series, but they were always contending. They always seemed to be very, very competitive. But the thing is that yes, was John Fisher in charge of those teams at that time? Absolutely. But a lot of what he inherited was left over from the previous ownership group under Lou Wolf. And, Lou Wolf has his own issues, but, that's besides the point. John Fisher inherited a lot of those resources. And after he inherited them, he tore a lot of them down. Like I said, like this story said, the A's were at the forefront of the analytical movement in Major League Baseball, and now they feel like they're in last place. They only have 6 members in their analytics department, which means either A, John Fisher has just not invested anything in the department for the last 2 decades, or B, John Fisher's done actually even worse than that. He's probably scaled back the department. He's scaled back operations because he's cheap. He's just a cheap billionaire who's always been rich. He doesn't know what it means to actually build something. He doesn't know what it means to actually try to make something great of your own accord. And the proof is in the pudding. You want to know why the A's are the worst team in Major League Baseball right now? It's because the A's have the worst infrastructure in Major League Baseball right now. You want to know why the Dodgers are the best team in Major League Baseball over the last decade? It's not because of all the money they spend. Sure, it helps. It's because they have the best infrastructure. They invest the money in their minor league system. They invest the money in their pitching labs or what have you. They invest the money in their young players to try to make them better. The A's don't do that. And there's another part of this story that I think is also really, really good, where Ken Rosenthal really breaks down really well kind of some of the stuff we were talking about as far as the lack of pitching development in the A's system. So you take a look at this part of the story. Quote, after the 2024 season, the A's fired Gil Patterson, who was minor league pitching coordinator from 2008, 2012, and 2016 to 2024. His replacement, Mike McFerrin, left in November to become the Kansas City Royals assistant pitching coach. The A's replaced McFerrin with Barry Enright, who left in June to become the pitching coach at Texas A&M. Then after entering the All-Star break on a 9-game losing streak, they fired Scott Emerson, who joined the organization in 2002 and was his 10th year as a major league pitching coach. When I was talking about the Scott Emerson firing, I think some of you gave me some flack because I was talking about how the A's need to be better at developing pitching, but I was also defending Scott Emerson. And this is what I mean. Scott Emerson's the major league pitching coach. So he's in charge of, working out and coaching the pitchers that are on the major league staff. But that's not how you develop great pitching. If the pitchers who are already in the major leagues are almost finished products, really, you can maybe polish them up a little bit. Where the real work happens is with the guys I just mentioned, those minor league pitching coaches, those pitching coordinators, the guys who put together the program of what the organization is going to do to try to make all the pitching in their organization the best it can possibly be. This is where the Brewers and the Rays and these other small market teams that we keep on bringing up, this is where they just dominate the rest of Major League Baseball. And what I've seen with all this turnover that Ken Rosenthal lays out nicely there in the A's annals of pitching is that A, the A's have not shown that they're willing to spend the money to keep these guys. All these guys are leaving for other jobs. And B, the A's haven't been able to create a long-term plan or even have a long-term voice that can help them create any sort of a coherent plan to develop good pitching down in their minor league system. Look, position players are easier to identify. Not saying that it's easy and not saying that they're easy to coach. You still need to have good hitting coaches. You still need to do your best to try to continue to help those guys improve. But a lot of times you can identify good hitters in the college draft or in high school. And really, if you do just basic things with them, a lot of times the talent's going to show. And that's what we've seen from Nick Kurtz. Nick Kurtz spent hardly any time in the minor league system. Nick Kurtz was almost a finished product when he came out of Wake Forest. We saw with Jacob Wilson, what we've seen with a lot of these guys. The real work, the real thing that turns an organization around, allows an organization to be successful, in my opinion, is what they do with their pitching. How do they develop the pitching that comes into the organization? Because unlike hitters, pitchers are much farther away from finished products when you draft them or when you bring them in. Much further away. There is all kinds of adjustments you need to make in order to get major league hitters out at a consistent level. Also, if you look at college baseball and if you've watched it at all, the pitching's horrible in college baseball, really. There's a few outliers, but for the most part, pitchers are not very good before they get into professional systems. And it's the professional teams, the organizations, that turn those pitchers into what we see on the field during major league games. And the A's don't have any coherent plan to try to create good pitching out of their own system. And John Fisher has shown no willingness to invest any money into trying to help those systems, trying to perfect those systems, trying to come up with ways where the A's, like they used to be able to do, can acquire and identify talent that maybe other teams, other bigger market teams, look over and then develop that talent into good major league products. And the A's have not been able to do that because John Fisher has been unwilling to spend the money to do it. And until John Fisher either all of a sudden magically becomes a different person overnight or the A's change ownership, that's not going to change. And until that changes, this A's team is going to continue to be in baseball purgatory, where every year we're going to have high hopes and they're just going to let us down. Because John Fisher, that's what he does. He lets you down. And I'm sorry, Vegas fans. I know I sound like a Debbie Downer, but get ready because he's going to let you down as well. Speaking of letting A's fans down, the A's just got swept by the Kansas City Royals.
I was juggling a couple different apps the other day, and then I realized to myself, why don't I just use our friends at Clutch Parlays, because that is their expertise. Instead of going to multiple different apps to check different injuries and betting lines, I can see it all in one with our friends at Clutch Parlays. And a little bit of bonus there is they give you data to back their bets. Maybe you want to do a double for a star player that night. They can give you the percentage of what they hit on for that exact bet. And that's why I love our friends at Clutch Parlays. But here's the offer for you. Find the best line and build smarter parlays. Track every bet and make more informed betting decisions, all with ClutchParlays.com. Right now, Clutch Parlays is offering a great deal for Locked On listeners. Your first month free on a monthly plan. They want to make sure that you get a real chance to try it out and see what it can do for you. Go to ClutchParlays.com today and use code Locked On to claim it. ClutchParlays.com. Bring together live odds, line shopping, predictions, bet tracking, analytics in one place so you can bet with more confidence.
Most underrated organs in your body, your liver. It's your body's filter, processing everything you consume and performing more than 500 functions every day. It's involved in things like energy production, digestion, fat metabolism, and vitamin storage. So it's doing a lot of work behind the scenes. That's why giving your liver daily support can be an important part of building healthy habits. Dose for your liver is a clinically backed liver health supplement designed to support daily liver function. Unlike another capsule or powder, Dose comes as a liquid 10-ounce daily shot that tastes like fresh squeezed orange juice. It's zero sugar, zero junk, and 0 calories, making it an easy addition to your daily routine. I've talked about it before on the show, but my favorite daily routine that I do every day for myself is I go on a run. It makes me feel healthy, it makes me feel confident in myself, and it just gives me that peace of mind that I'm doing something for my body that my body is going to thank me for. Very similar when it comes to Dose. Dose is something that you can easily add to your daily routine. It'll make you feel better, and it will also just be a little treat that you can give your body so that you know that you're treating your body well, at least in one aspect of your day. Ready to give your liver the support it deserves? Head to dosedaily.co/LockedOnMLB or enter LockedOnMLB to get 35% off your first subscription. Your body does so much for you. Let's do something for it. That's dosedaily.co/LockedOnMLB for 35% off your first month subscription. All right, so the A's, well, they got swept. Are any of us surprised? I'm not. They lost 6-2 to the Royals here on Thursday as they dropped 4 straight games to the lowly Kansas City Royals. And the A's single-handedly have allowed the Royals to get to 19 games under 500. And what's even more wild, wait for it, the Royals are within 9 games of a playoff spot now at 55-74. They're 8.5 back. It's not impossible, folks. That's how bad the American League is. And that's how just completely and utterly frustrating it is that the A's couldn't have even been halfway decent this year. Because if they were even halfway decent, they would have been in playoff contention. So what happened here today? What went wrong? Well, honestly, unexpectedly, it was Gage Jump that went wrong. 5 earned runs over 4 innings. He gave up 8 hits. He looked very, very hittable here today, gave up a home run, and the A's were really behind the 8 ball very early on. This is much different than the last 2 games that we saw where the Royals came back late in the contest. The A's were down 5-0 after 4 innings before finally being able to put up 2 runs in the top of the 5th to make things at least a little interesting. But after that, it was all kind of a snooze fest as the Royals ultimately win this thing 6-2. Bobby Witt hit a homer. Isaac Collins had an RBI. Nick Lofton had an RBI triple. Salvador Perez had an RBI. Brian Serven had the only hit with runners in scoring position today, an RBI single that made it 5-1. Donovan Walton picked up an RBI, and that was pretty much all she wrote. The bullpen, well, I mean, Taylor Rashi came in, the Diamondbacks defection, and he gave up an earned run over 2, and then Blewett came in and did not blow it. It was already blown before Blewett came in, so he couldn't blow it. Didn't give up a run over 2 innings. So 6-2 the score as the A's drop another one. I guess they were technically 2 for 10 with runners in scoring position today, but Servens was the only hit that actually knocked anyone in. That's one of the more misleading stats in baseball, the runners in scoring position stat, because you could theoretically score nothing and still have hits with runners in scoring position because the guy could just go to third. I feel like we need another stat for that. Maybe RBIs is the stat. I don't know. You guys know what I mean. Anyway, A's lose once again to the Kansas City Royals as they fall 6-2. And folks, this is about as rock bottom as it gets. Jacob Wilson's probably going to go on the IL tomorrow, which means that the A's will actually have their 5 best hitters all on the injured list. Even Gage Jump, one of the only 3 guys in this rotation that I'm actually excited to watch, even he was not very good today. And, well, the A's sit now at 30 games under 500, 49-79. Hey, if they go undefeated, they can still finish over 500, and they'd probably actually make the playoffs. Not going to happen, but we can only dream. The A's will now move on to take on Houston and try to play spoilers against them. Houston's only 64-63, and they're talking about firing their general manager in Dana Brown, even though they might actually make the playoffs. They're not hot either. They're 4-6 in their last 10. So possibly an opportunity for the A's to spoil a little bit. The A's have had some success in Houston over the last couple of years, particularly with some big moments. I think about Nick Kurtz's 4 home run game last year. But unfortunately, it will not be any of the players that have had success in Houston over the last few years playing in this series. Instead, it'll be the B team led by, oh God, who led by Zack Gelof? Is Zack Gelof our star now? Zack Gelof, face of the franchise right now. He's not bad. After that, oh God, who is it Jeff McNeil? Is Jeff McNeil our second best player right now? Let's take a look at this lineup. This is a fun game. Who is the second best player on the A's right now? I think it might be Henry Bolte. So Zack Gelof's the face of the franchise now, and Henry Bolte is the second best player. Also, Lawrence Butler did go 2 for 3 today, so maybe I was a little too hard on him. I wasn't. I was not too hard on him, but good for him. He had a good game. All right. We're going to take your comments. Let's see what you guys have to say about what's going on. If you've got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why the Fruity Rainbow 5-hour energy shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. Fruity Rainbow 5-hour energy shots treat your taste buds to an explosion of fruity flavor with a tasty caffeine kick. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. We all know that when you get later into the afternoon, especially in the workday, sometimes you just need a little boost, just need a little kick, pick me up. And 5 Energy is an easy way to get that boost that tastes good so that you can get through the rest of the day as productively as possible. Get candy-flavored chaos with fruity rainbow 5-hour energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Before we get into today's show, it's time for the Everyday Icon presented by Stance. As the official sock partner of Major League Baseball, Stance knows greatness isn't built in a single moment. It's earned over time through consistency, preparation, and showing up every day. That's why each week we're recognizing one player whose performance embodies those same qualities. And we're going to go with Jeff McNeil. Although he went 0 for 5 here today, Jeff McNeil has been one of the most consistent hitters for the A's over the last couple of weeks, hitting .346 in his last 15 games and .333 over his last 7. The Everyday Icon is presented by Stance. Check out the Icon collection from Stance. Premium comfort, performance, and durability designed for whatever your day brings. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for 20% off your purchase. Stance, the official sock partner of Major League Baseball. Learn more at stance.com. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. We'll throw it to the public forum. Nothing better than that. So we'll go to the most recent episode, which has over 200 views already, guys. Appreciate it. This is Broken Record. Athletics bullpen ruins another game. And let's get started with at Gilbert Rivera 3640. Best position player bargains we have is Bolte, Gelof, Kuroda, Grauer, Muncy, all making under $1 million next year. Either keep them in the starting lineup next year or use them as trade bait to get bullpen guys, and please try to bring back closer Mason Miller. Unfortunately, I don't think Mason Miller is coming back. I have a fleeting suspicion that he will sign elsewhere once his contract is over with the San Diego Padres. And honestly, if I'm the Padres, I'm going to try to keep him as long as I possibly can. Now, as far as what you just said, see, this is kind of the beauty of baseball, right? It's the beauty of it, and the reason why small market teams can succeed in Major League Baseball much easier than like in the NBA or something, is that most baseball players are over the hill by the time they're done with their first contract. Some are not, and some you can sign to free agent contracts and they end up being great for you. But for the most part, if you were to look at the average production of good baseball players before they become free agents and after they become free agents, they're usually much, much better before they become free agents. So if you're a small market team, your lifeblood, what makes you so good is that you make timely trades so that you can get young players back. And then through your player development, you develop those young players into a consistent loop and flow of low-priced good talent. And the guys you just mentioned are some of the guys the A's have that are low-priced good young talent. Guys like Gelof, Kuroda, Grauer, Max Muncy, and Henry Bolte. And I do think that there may be a rationale where you trade some of these guys to get good pitching. Now, it would have to be a good deal because, again, these guys are your lifeblood, the low-priced young players who have yet to hit free agency and have yet to kill you in arbitration. So if you're going to trade them, it's got to be a good trade. Now, the problem is, while the A's have all these position players that are low-priced and are the lifeblood of the organization, they have almost no pitchers, particularly no bullpen pitchers, who fit that description. So if the A's are going to fix the bullpen or fix the pitching, they're going to have to spend some money, and I'm just not sure if John Fisher is willing to do that. At Victor R-CR5RR, lots of R's. The Mason Miller trade not looking good. Braden Nett back at AA wasn't pitching good for Aviators, and Leo DeVries, yes, he can hit, but his defense is horrible, and we already have some good infielders. Yeah, you know, Leo DeVries, for being such a high prospect, his numbers don't really blow me away down in the minor leagues. Now, who am I to say that all of these experts are wrong? But, you know, we've seen them be wrong before. So this idea that we're going to count on Leo DeVries coming up and being an automatic star, that may not be the case. Now, it might be the case, but it may not. So we can't count on that. That's the thing. You have to, if you're going to be a good major league organization, if you're going to be a good baseball organization, you have to be able to consistently develop young talent. You can't put all your hopes in one guy because there's a good chance that one guy could let you down. Braden Nett, he's got good stuff, but obviously there needs to be some work going on there. And yeah, I mean, look, again, my issue has never been with the trade of Mason Miller. Look, the A's were out of it last year. The least helpful thing that you can have as a baseball team is a great closer on a losing team. It's the most redundant, useless thing. So I'm not necessarily against the concept of trading him. I was never against the concept of trading him. But if you're going to trade him, wouldn't you try to replace him if you're going to try to win the next year? And the A's didn't do any of that. Their replacement for Mason Miller was Mark Leiter. That was the guy they got to replace that spot in the bullpen. So if you're going to trade Mason Miller and then you're going to say to our faces, we're trying to win this year, you're going to have to do something to replace Mason Miller, because that's a big hole that you left gaping wide open with the trade. So we'll see if DeVries works out. But again, I'm not against the concept of trading him. I was never against that. It was the fact that they never did anything to try to replace him. At Gilbert, you already had a comment, Gilbert. Let's throw it to someone else. S. Jackson McGinnis -Z7N. I agree. I think the A's need to totally revamp their bullpen. It's really bad outside of Mr. Medina. No one is safe from the bullpen. Butler needs to take a break from baseball. I just don't think the game is right for him, and he's horrible at hustling and is lazy in general. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much just agree with everything that I've said, and great minds think alike, Jackson. Luis Medina has great stuff, and when he's out there, you can tell that's a ball player. Like, there's just something about his body language. I think Luis Medina is going to turn into something special, hopefully with the A's, but who knows? And honestly, he'd be a guy I'd be interested in just trying to develop into a closer. As far as Lawrence Butler is concerned, yeah, man, I mean, it just ticks me off because he is so talented, right? And I was really mad last night, but he's so talented. But he just doesn't apply himself. Like, when he's out there, it doesn't look like he burns to win. Looks like he burns to have some cool celebrations and look cool. But does he burn to win? I don't really see that. All right. At Sin City Brent. Yeah, that was my final straw with Butler. I've been trying to defend this guy, but he straight up doesn't care. Once again, this bullpen sucks. I don't want to see any of them next year. I'm not even surprised when we blow leads now. Honestly, I'm expecting it every game. No, it's true. Like, literally, when I'm watching the A's game, I will say to my family as I'm watching the game, how are the A's going to blow it today? When I'm at cross-country practice and maybe the A's game starts a little bit before I leave and the A's have a lead, I'll say, okay, I'm going to go home and see how the A's are going to blow this one today. And it's not because I hate the A's. It's because the A's have just blown almost every lead that I've seen over the last couple of months. At a certain point, I'm not going to be delusional. Like, the bullpen's horrible. You really got to have, I was going to say you really got to have like a 6-run lead, but the A's have blown one of those this year too. You got to have like a 10-run lead to be safe from this bullpen. Oh boy. If the A's just had a decent bullpen, just a decent one, it'd be such a different season, but alas. All right, folks, that was the last show for me this week. We'll be back coming up with new shows on Monday. We're getting back to my broadcasting season, so I'll be really, really busy, but I'll still get the shows out for you. Appreciate all of you tuning in this week. Thanks for making this show the great show that it is. And we'll see if the A's can find a way to get at least one against those dreaded Houston Astros.